This is Grimm Grinner on all channels.
The Badlands River, working corporations is an insidious agent. Fire and stunning gates, devastation to the wastes, the desolated. Do not trust him.
Welcome to the Wastes. Hey there, Wasteland. Grimm Grinner here, broadcasting from the bunker on all channels. It's been a slow few weeks here for me, checking constantly to see if anyone has seen or heard anything new from that mysterious voice broadcasting out about who I supposedly am. Of course, there's been nothing for a long while, other than the broadcasts on loop, still just claiming I'm the desolate king in Badlands River. All those other whack jobs. I have picked up some other random reports whenever I've tuned into the right frequencies, though. So I figured I might as well keep doing what I do best and transmit what I've heard to whoever is listening. So here's the word from the wastes, as much as I can gather. I've heard a few reports from some camps and smaller settlements of a wasteland prankster wreaking an odd brand of havoc. Normally this type of report comes with a menacing tone, but this just seems like something I'd label under weird shit in the wastes. See, this wastelander approaches camps offering to trade, and seems to be interested in random scraps that most survivors wouldn't think would be worth anything. Gives them pretty reasonable items in return, but always adds in a tin that seems like it would have some smaller trinket in it, only for the wastelander to be greeted with a crude image of a fantasy goblin. Prankster then shouts, "You got goblined," and takes off on his bike before giving any explanation. Signature image with the exclamation has also been found painted on the walls of a few of the more fortified camps, leaving the people there scratching their heads. I won't pretend to understand the logic behind this, but at the end of the day, as long as this wastelander isn't causing any harm to anyone, then I don't see much of a problem. In fact, I'd wager that the waste could use a bit more light-hearted fun like that. Helps to break up the constant dangers to have something silly crop up now and then. I've also received word from a recent contact named Grease Nymph that a gathering is happening in the region known as Uranium Springs. Sounds like it's a collective of survivors and scavengers who like to camp out, trade stories, and celebrate the world as it became after the bombs were detonated. Grounds were left relatively rat-free, and they sound pretty well protected from ferals and corporate danger. The occasional raiders will try and crash the party, but usually end up either dusted or joining in on the fun for a night before moving on to easier targets. Gathering happens in a couple months' time, so Grace figured I could get the word out on a wider signal than her receiver can manage right now. With my imposed isolation, I definitely won't be making it much of anywhere for a while, but maybe a future year. Word has recently reached me that the wasted washouts have been making waves out in the western Badlands, right between Cougar and the Vanished Territory. From what I've heard, they recently overtook a small corporate base in the mountains that housed some elite squads, alongside some members of a local community of other rebellious roughhousers. And to that I say good on ya. That's a little good news that hearing about a corporate facility falling like that fills me with an immense amount of pride. And considering there's been a few folks hinting that the washouts are inspired by my broadcasts, can't help but almost feel like a proud parent seeing their kid hit a moving target with a slingshot. So, to any members of the wasted washouts that may hear this, keep on keeping on and make some damn noise. Some chatter on the Phoenix Express lines coming in recently that's made it sound like things have finally started to smooth out between the couriers and Twin Town. Of course, this is mostly just discussions between the couriers and militia members themselves, as General Daggers has still avoided any meetings with Balasar for reasons unknown. Based on what I know about the General, he has his own set of prejudices, particularly for anyone not willing to conform to militia rules. So there could be any number of reasons for him to not want to meet Balasar. But at least the worker bees are trying to come to some sort of agreement in the meantime. I was able to patch into some of the smaller scavenger frequencies the other day and picked up word of a few different hot spots out there amidst the ruins of some of the bigger cities, at least the ones that didn't end up under any sort of corporate operation. A fair few of them are swarming with ferals, but there are a handful that are still worth checking out, even with word of raider camps being set up nearby. From what I gather, the biggest one right now is southeast of Tweedle, in the ruins of old Quebec. Some sections of the city were preserved and granted protection by the Safe Day Foundation before the fall, which helped to keep them fairly intact. There are some raider camps in the sturdier areas of the ruined city, but the preserved areas have been acting as a sort of neutral zone. Not sure why no one's moved in yet, but it could be worth checking out. Just bring some scrap with you in case you need to buy your way out of danger. There are some other big ones I've heard about, like the fairly isolated Hatton Island, which very few survivors have tried to get to since the fall. After the bridges were lost and the island was cut off from the mainland, no one's really been able to get across to check things out in several years. And the last wastelanders that did make it across haven't been heard from, which either means they're dust or living a slice of the old world. With talk of corporate facilities still operating on sections of the nearby mainland, it's no wonder people haven't tried to get over. I managed to tap into one of the signals and was able to talk with a scavenger named 3D about why those locations have just recently become places of interest, when they've been sitting there since the fall waiting to be claimed or picked clean. They didn't have much in the way of solid reasons, but they suspect that the worry of ferals and corporate involvement have kept a lot of scrap junkies away. With the feral swarms being more noticeable in the western Badlands and further south, and the corporate patrols keeping a tight range around the walls of their known cities and facilities, these locations are looking more and more like treasure troves waiting for some lucky scaver. Well, except for Hatton Island. Without a reliable source to know if anyone or anything has taken up residence, it's still a risk not a lot of wastelanders are willing to take yet. Well, my wasteland wanderers, that's all I have to report on for now. Gotta get some equipment prepped here at the bunker, as I've received word on the first solid lead on the Haven survivors that we've had in months, and I need to follow up on it. Meeting up with a few runners I can trust en route, ideally with the next several hours. It's going to be a few days' trek if we're not caught up in any trouble, so I need to make sure things are secure and that I have everything I might need. This has been Grimm Grinner on all channels. See you in the wastes. Welcome to The Wastes is a Wasteland podcast brought to you by Edward Grimm Grinner Hutchinson. Feel free to follow me on all social media and make sure to subscribe so you can hear new episodes as they release. If you like what I do here and want to support the podcast by getting some cool merch, check out my Etsy store. For more information and all the links, check out linktree.com/welcome to the wastes. Thanks for listening.